So, Miss Green, on episode 2, you asked a very interesting question, and I wanted to leave it for today.
How would we know when we are not in Maya? How will we behave? How will our mentality be like? What it is to be not engaged with Maya?
So, interestingly, in the yoga text Bhagavad Gita, Krishna was asked a similar question by his disciple Arjuna. Arjuna was querying, how do you spot a person that is situated in transcendence? What do they look like? What do they do? How can you see? And Krishna gives a series of answers, and he goes quite deep into many topics. But I thought extracting a little bit just to attempt to answer that question that you asked. And one of the things that Krishna says to Arjuna is that one who is not disturbed in mind is situated in transcendence. How do we translate that in more everyday practical terms to understand it? It's when we don't get too either down because of the amount of suffering that comes our way, or we don't get too high due to the amount of happiness that comes our way. Because when we're on a path, in a soul-searching path, for example, or any elevating path, both things, suffering and happiness, can be very disruptive. When we are free from fear, anger, and attachment, we can be considered a sage of a steady mind. And he gives a very interesting example. It's when a person can withdraw the senses from the sense objects in similar way as a tortoise will withdraw the limbs into the shell. No, you ever seen tortoise with that? Phew! I used to have a pet turtle, and she used to do that. Anyway, so we are meant to, as human beings, we are meant to control our senses and our need to run like wild horses after our senses, trying to satisfy our senses. We should be withdrawn and grave like that, and that will keep us situated in transcendence. Transcendence meaning not being affected by the things that happened externally, nicely situated from within.
That is not easy to maintain in this current life.
No. But anyway, that's what we should aspire to. Since we have a human machine, and which is a wonderful platform to go beyond. See what I did there? Okay. So I was thinking for this episode, you wanted to talk about the muscular system. And immediately I thought about, for the beyond part of this episode, I wanted to talk about strength. But I wasn't thinking of strength as physical strength or even mental strength, which are handy and practical and good things to have, but I was thinking about spiritual strength, by which you can contain all other types of strength, I think. And so, but before we go deep into that, you can give us a little overview of the muscular system.
Thank you. Firstly, I would like to point out that we have 3 types of muscles. We have skeletal muscles, which are the muscles attached to our bones, as you can see on the poster behind us. And we have cardiac muscle, which is essentially our heart itself. And we have smooth muscles, which are, for example, intestines, our iris, or the walls of our blood vessels. That's our bladder as well. And today I'm going to briefly talk about our skeletal muscles.
Okay.
So some of their functions are to maintain our posture, producing heat, and ability to contract and relax. For example, there are certain minerals that are essential for muscle contractions and relaxation. For example, we need calcium in order to contract the muscle, and we need magnesium to relax the muscles. And I will give some examples. When we stand, in order to maintain our posture, we need all our muscles to contract. Or in case of severe cold climate, our shivering will cause our muscles to contract and produce heat.
Okay, so in last episode we were talking about the skeletal system.
Yes.
And I thought that it was the bones that keep the posture, but you were referring to the muscles.
Yes, so what I've learned throughout my studies is that one system in our body doesn't work on its own. We always need 2 or 3 systems to work together as a team in order to perform any function or to maintain something in our body. So, for example, here we have a nice teamwork between bones, our skeleton, and our muscles, because if we wouldn't have bones, then the muscles wouldn't be able to attach to anything. So they work together in order to maintain our posture, in order to enable us to move. We need both. There is a teamwork going on in our machine.
So I'm currently having a holistic physiotherapy treatment because of a condition on my back and related things and issues. And it's interesting because it's a lot of work with the muscle and strengthening or elongating, and there's a lot of posture work, but it's mostly through the muscle and a little bit on looking with the osteopath, what the bones are, how they are situated and like that. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I also want to say that our muscular system is so important that our breathing depends on it. And thanks to our muscular system, we can talk, we can chew. So we wouldn't be able to chew, to speak, to blink, close our eyes, breathe. This is how important our muscular system is. And if we wouldn't have fully functional muscular system, it would be very, very difficult to maintain the functions of our machine.
There's a saying that I don't remember exactly how it goes, but it roughly says, in order to frown, you need about 100 muscles in your face to do that. You're angry or displeased or something. But in order to smile, you only need about 11 muscles to function.
Yeah.
So it's a saying that encourages smiling instead of frowning.
And smiling is such a beautiful thing. Actually, talking about smiling, and when you smile, you send a signal to your brain that releases serotonin, the happy hormone. So it's so nice to smile, and you can make other people smile as well.
Yeah, smiling is contagious.
I love it.
It's true. Okay, so thank you, Miss Green. That's very interesting. Hope you can see a little bit here. There's some sort of explanations going on about the human machine part. And so we can now go a little bit lean towards strength.
Yes, so I was wondering, you mentioned the spiritual strength, and a question came to my mind. How do we find that spiritual strength within ourselves?
Okay, first I want to say where that strength comes from. I mentioned earlier in Bhagavad Gita, which is translated as the Song of God. Gita is song, and Bhagavad refers to Bhagavan, which is a name given to Krishna, to God. And Bhagavan means he who possesses in full the 6 opulences. And those opulences are wealth, knowledge, fame, beauty, renunciation, and strength. And as the Gita also explains, we are part and parcel of Krishna or Bhagavan. Therefore, we have in minute quantity the opulences in different ways. Everybody might display more beauty opulence, more wealth opulence, and even if we were to have 6 opulences, we have them in a tiny, relatively number compared to Bhagavan. So our strength comes from the divine source of our existence. So we inherit that in a way. However, when we are having the human experience, we become covered by so many layers of illusion, and different things are acting so much so that we forget who we really are, and we become weakened by the external circumstances. And so how to find that spiritual strength? I like to give an example from another ancient yoga text, which I've quoted before and I like very much, and is such a endless source of knowledge, which is the Srimad Bhagavatam or the Bhagavata Purana. And in there is a narration about a story of a king of elephants called Gajendra. Now he engages in a fight with a crocodile, and this happens in a lake or a river, which is the natural habitat of the crocodile, but it isn't the habitat of the elephant. The elephant is a mammal and he lives on earth and like that. But occasionally he will refresh and do his thing, go to drink and wash and like that in a river or the ocean or whatever, a body of water. And so the crocodile attacks Gajendra, the king of elephants, and they engage what the Bhagavata Purana refers to as a 1,000-year battle.
Wow,
So it's
long battle.
A lot of strength required to go into that battle. And the king of elephants, on paper, you'll think that he will be able to win in that battle. But why he was weakened and losing the battle? Because he was not in his natural environment, but the crocodile was. And so the water and the things that were surrounded him were nourishing him and making him stronger. And it was the opposite for the elephant. And so similarly for us, because we live such artificial lives, completely devoid of any application of real intelligence, we're completely out of tune with nature, no harmony with others, with other species, the whole thing, so we become lost and weakened.
That's so true. So I was wondering, are there any practical tips that we can practice in our everyday life that can help us to bring that harmony with nature and that spiritual strength that we naturally have in a very small quantity?
Handy that you asked that, because I made a very final note on my little notepad for today's episode, which we named The Strength of the Strong, which is a direct quote from Bhagavad Gita. And it reads, I'm just going to read it exactly what I wrote. Spiritual strength dwindles in the pursuance of sense gratification, material gain, etc. And so to answer more simply that question that you just asked, I will quote a very wise formula given by Bhaktivedanta Swami, which in 5 words gives the solution to that. And that is simple living and high thinking.
Wow!
This is the way to become spiritually strong. And that means many things. We will have to have a separate episode for that. But, we don't strive for unnecessary necessities that we have created. We don't overindulge in destructive recreation. We cultivate compassion and gratitude, help one another, cultivate respect for others of any species, and so that, you know, leads us to being more in tune with nature, caring for obviously the planet that needs it so much, the plants, the trees, the bodies of water, the different animals which we don't need to kill and eat, and everybody else is, you know, we try to everybody live together, cooperate more than create.
Just
chaos.
like our body. You know, whilst you were saying that, it actually made my heart feel so warm, because it sounds like a perfect life in a mode of goodness, which is quite opposite what we see in today's society.
Yeah, and what a perfect ending for today's episode. Thank you, Miss Green. If you enjoy our little talk and want to continue a little bit the conversation, please leave a comment below, provided you can be civilized and respectful and relevant to the topic, then we'll be happy to chat with you.
Ascharyavat!
And remember, most importantly, you are not the body.